All right, folks, good day. Welcome to the States, where I've been for a couple of weeks now, but I've been mostly doing things like traveling to conferences and speaking at one or two small churches, sorting out lots of administration. But we're up in Tennessee in a new location, sort of between Jamestown and Crossville, and we've got a great lot of work that needs to be done in terms of organising and sorting and preparing for displays and everything like that. So I want you to come and meet Glenn Wilson. He's been on Creation Conversations a number of times.
Yes.
This is Dr. Glenn Wilson, and your background is soil science?
Soil science, specifically soil physics and hydrology.
So we met Glenn, well, you met John several
Yes.
years ago.
That's
and I
right.
met you about 4 years ago.
That's right.
And we've gone fossil hunting together, and we're hoping
Yes.
to go and do some more research this time as well. And we're looking forward to, we might even go and visit some caves this afternoon.
That sounds great.
should be pretty
Gonna
good.
Do a little hiking, see a little bit of worms glowing.
Indeed, yeah, it'll be good. And we're going to be taking the cameras and filming stuff like that as well. Now, what we've been doing here, Glenn, inside your garage here for the last sort of 3 or 4 days is John Mackay has been visiting the US for 30 odd years, many years.
40.
40 maybe. And he's collected lots and lots and lots of fossils over that time. So we've been traveling around to all his different locations where he's been storing all these fossils, collecting them all together. And now we need to go through and sort them out and organize them all and get everything ready because what are we doing next week, Glenn?
Yes, we have a special Creation Week in Jamestown, Tennessee. We've got many different speaking engagements lined up for Indiana Joe, as well as a radio station that's going to have him on every morning. So he's going to be quite busy come next week.
Yeah, and we're going to have lots of these fossils on display out there and be able to take people around and show them some of the great evidence and stuff like that. So why don't we pull out a few bits, Glenn, and talk about them. I think it's probably best if the camera stays out there because I think once it comes inside here, it...
In our metal buildings, not real conducive to videoing.
Plus, we're sort of in the middle of nowhere here, so your Wi-Fi is not always the greatest. But I wanted to show you some of these bits because when I first saw this, I was a little bit confused as to what it was. I had to call up John Mackay and get him to tell me. But can you see the sort of the white chalky stuff? Can you see how it's also kind of coloured red? And it's full of these fossils. In fact, Glenn, you've got a bit there. Lots of lovely bryozoans, and these are all brachiopods. Now, if you look at it this way, it actually looks remarkably like the red chalk at Hunstanton, which is from just down the road where I grew up in England, and I thought this red chalk was unique. I thought it wasn't found anywhere outside of the UK. And, well, it's not quite the same as the red chalk, because the red chalk at Hunstanton is Cretaceous rock. Now, not only is this not really chalk, it's also the part of the... Carboniferous rock layers. Now, what is it? Well, you've ended up with these beautiful, beautiful shells that have been buried in limestone, thick grey limestone, and it's become decomposed. It started to be destroyed, and that's why you end up with this white chalky stuff. But then what's happened is it's gone through a process called laterization, and we know a lot about laterization. We've spoken about it on our Fire and Ice program. It's where you have your chalk or your limestone and you end up with your clays, and in a warm and wet environment it ends up oxidizing, so you end up with this beautiful red color. So it's decomposed, laterized limestone which is full of these beautiful fossils, and it's only found in one or two little locations around Tennessee out towards Cookeville. So we were pretty pleased to find this, and also even more pleased to work out exactly what was going on with it. But it's quite an unusual fossil. Oh, and by the way, you see the number of shells that there are in there? Just this huge flood dump tells you that this was buried quickly, because limestone's supposed to take hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, to slowly build up millimetre by millimetre, and yet you have great big fossils all the way through it. So it's certainly a sign of rapid burial. Let's pop that down over there, and I wanted to show you a couple of fossils that we found last time we were here in the States, and I thought we'd lost these, so I'm pretty pleased to have found them again. Can you see this unusual kind of marking just here? It's actually one of those arthropod trackways. Now, John's been collecting from the Spencer area for many years, and we, for the first time in 2019, the last time we were here doing ministry with you, Glenn, you came with us.
Me. I was there when you found this.
And we actually started to find some of these trackways for the first time, including a whole set of footprints, which we've also got down here, little amphibian footprints as well. So arthropod trackways, amphibian footprints buried next to sea creatures like horseshoe crabs, buried next to great big huge trees. And in fact, just
Yes.
above this, you've got those.
The polystrate trees.
That's right. Ones
Yes.
that go all the way up. In fact, Glenn,
And the coal seam.
and the coal seam, which these polystrate trees sit on.
Yes.
Now, Glenn, I introduced you to a brand new piece of technology the other day that we want to go to these polystrate trees and
That's
use.
right.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about 3D scannings with the phone, and then you can reconstruct the 3D image. It's really fantastic technology. And being a soil scientist that worked in the sedimentation lab, we use that technology to be able to measure how much soil loss is in gullies, in reels, using the same technology. But we can use it.
We can use
creation
to
research.
make these beautiful 3D scans, and it means we can bring these polystrate trees to you, albeit virtually, but it makes it so
Yes.
much more real than just a picture or a photograph. And be watching on our websites and our YouTube channels, because we'll be bringing some of this detail to
As
you
well
soon.
as being able to do 3D printing instead of making casts.
Indeed, and it's absolutely amazing the kind of stuff that
Yes.
you can do nowadays.
Yes.
So let's have a look and see what else we've got, because we've got literally thousands of these fossils all over the place, and we'll bring a few over for you to look at. I in particular love this great big lycopod root. It's known as a lepidodendron. We have these in the UK. It's part of the Carboniferous rocks. Oh, we call them Carboniferous in England because they're full of carbon, right? Full of coal. But in the States, well, Carboniferous is an English name, so they wouldn't possibly go with that. They call these Pennsylvanian and Mississippian. We have the upper and lower Carboniferous. In the States, it's the Pennsylvanian and the Mississippian. It's exactly the same rocks, just split into two. And we actually know what this is because it looks like the modern ones, with one major difference. You see, the modern ones are called club mosses, the little tassel ferns. You can come to Wales in the United Kingdom and go and look at them up in the mountains. They're tiny little things that sprawl across the ground. This is a root of a giant club moss tree. Yeah, in the past they used to be much, much bigger. Today they're spindly little things on the ground. And it tells you one thing. Well, what it certainly has done is reproduce after its kind. It hasn't evolved into anything else, but it has changed. And the change is a downhill change. They used to be big, now they're small. They've lost the ability to survive in the harsh climate that we have in the world today. And so as a result, you have a pattern of good to bad to worse, which matches exactly what we read in the Bible. In the beginning, everything was very good. Man sinned, the world was cursed, and the world changed from good to bad. By the time you get to Noah's flood, you have the first ever reference to climate change. God gives man permission to go out and hunt because the world has become so hard to survive in, and the world had gone from good to bad to worse, down to where we are today. So don't be surprised that the fossil record matches that perfectly. What have you got here, Glenn?
Well, not only interesting about this is that roots, I used to do studies on roots and root distribution. We don't find roots shaped like this today. These have been flattened out. So what would cause these to be flattened out? Well, of course, the flood. You've got hundreds of feet of sediment piled up on top of it. That root is going to squash. So again, evidence that God's word is true. There was a massive flood because it would take massive layers of sediment to squash these. And this is where we'll find the roots flattened out.
Tennessee has been well known for its coal geology for many, many years, and many of these old coal mines you used to be able to go down into and see all the polystrate trees, and in fact we're going to try and chase down a top secret location for polystrate trees. But some of the other places, just sometimes in the road cuts, you can find absolutely gorgeous fossils like this. Just look at the stunning detail on these little fern-type things. Absolutely beautiful. And what you're actually dealing with here are plants that are carbonized. Now, if you've been watching Creation Conversations, you'll know that a couple of weeks ago we dealt with the process of fossilization, and we talked about the different types of fossilization there are, from calcification to permineralization to so on and so forth. Well, this is a form called carbonization. In fact, I don't know how well the camera will pick it up, but if you look at it side on, you can actually see that these plants are really 3D. They sit there in the rock. They've been squashed and they've had a chemical process taken hold of them, which changes the carbon out, so you've become coalified, carbonized, and you end up with these absolutely beautiful specimens. In fact, you've got a lovely one there too, Glenn.
Yes, Yes, you can see the ferns very well, and these look just like the ferns that I've got in my yard.
Here's a rather interesting fossil. If you come with me to the United Kingdom, we can go to Wales. In Wales, you've got some really beautiful and rich history, including the time of the Celts, just before the Romans went there. And the Celts had all different names, like the Ordovician tribe and the Silurian tribe. And if you go to the place where the Ordovician tribe lived, well, the Ordovician tribe are now extinct. And when the first geologists started digging up rocks from the area where the Ordovician tribe lived, they found some little creatures, and those creatures are now extinct. So they named the rocks that these extinct creatures were found in after the extinct tribe that used to live in Wales, the Ordovician rocks. And we've done lots of work on the Ordovician rocks all the way around Tennessee in the United States, and you still find those beautiful little creatures even in the Ordovician rocks here. They're called trilobites. Oh, trilobites, don't be scared of big technical words. Scientists love to overcomplicate things. Break it down. Trilobites. Well, ite means thing or creature. Lobe, well, you have lobes on your ears, right? The little lobes. And tri means three. So trilobite means three-lobed thing, or you call them trilobites over here, don't you? But it's the same. Trilobites, trilobites, but you can actually see the three lobes. 1, 2, 3. A three-lobed creature. And yes, they are extinct as far as we know now today, but they are named after the Ordovician tribe. So nothing to do with millions of years, nothing to do with evolution. It's the same when you think of the classic Jurassic rocks, right? Jurassic, millions of years. That's what you think, isn't it?
That's what you think.
But it's named after the rocks in the Jura Mountains. Nothing to do with millions of years at all. Well, Glenn, we've got our work cut out in going through and organising all of this. We'll continue to bring some live updates. We're going to be filming our trip to the caves tonight. We've got a really busy week. We're going to be on the radio every single day next week. We've got youth groups, we've got church meetings, we've got a big community
Radio stations.
It's absolutely wonderful. So continue to follow us as we go, as we explore the world that God has given us and do some fabulous research, and we'll continue bringing you updates from Creation Research on Indiana Joe's Road Trip. So until next time, goodbye and God bless.